Hello everyone, this is Nitpicking Nerd, and today I want to review all the episodes of Season 1 of Star Trek Picard, and this will also be an opportunity to summarize what I liked in the show versus what I disliked in it. A while ago I promised to do a season review, but I don't really want to repeat all the points which I went into a lot of details about in all my reviews of every episode of the show. So I'm not going to do a long season review, it will just be repeating myself, but I do want to kind of summarize briefly all the things that I liked, and I did like some things in the show, versus all the things I disliked most. And I'm going to briefly mention some of those things in this video, in which I'll be ranking all the episodes from best to worst. And the ranking I will give in this video might not fit exactly the ranking I gave in my reviews, because I didn't yet see the full picture of the whole season when I was making those reviews, and in the end of each review I gave the number of lights out of 5 lights that I give each episode. And for example, the very first episode, which now I think is one of the best episodes of the whole season, but back then I found a lot of things in it annoying, and I didn't know all the other episodes will be a lot worse, and so I gave it only 4 lights out of 5, but now I will give it 5 lights because all the other episodes are probably worse except for episode 7, which I would also now give 5 lights because I think it was one of the best episodes. And the absolute worst episode in my opinion now is episode 5. That's the episode when they killed Ichab in a horrible way. That's the episode when they went to that club and Picard dressed up like an evil Frenchman, and I realized it was an attempt to do comedy, but it didn't really work. It was cringy, and all that stuff with Ichab and Seven becoming a murderer and all of that. How can you do that kind of stuff in the same episode which is supposed to be comedic? So it didn't mesh together well. It was all over the place, it was terrible. So that episode I would now give 0 lights out of 5. That's the absolute most horrible episode maybe from all of Star Trek. Especially because of the way it totally destroyed and devastated the character from Voyager in such a way that you're now unable to watch Voyager without thinking about it. That's just absolutely despicable. But anyway, I'll get back to that in the end. I want to start with the best episode. I was kind of conflicted between episode 1 and episode 7. Episode 7 is the one in which Picard meets Riker and Troy, and I actually thought all of those scenes of all of them together, that's undoubtedly the best part of the whole season, because first of all it felt like a proper sequel to TNG, seeing more than just one character appear, and the way they acted, especially Riker, was really good in that episode, and he felt like the same character, and even the new character of that daughter they had was great in my opinion, and the visuals in that episode, even though it's not really a science fiction setting, it's just them in the forest, in the lake and all of that, but I personally love nature and I love all those kind of places, so I really enjoyed that episode, and I think I would put it as number 1 because it actually had some kind of emotional connection. I actually felt something watching that episode, even though it wasn't really science fiction in any way, but at least it felt like it's the characters I care about, and it had some sad moments, it had happy moments, it had a little bit of everything, so I really enjoyed that episode, except maybe a few lines that were a bit problematic, and also all those scenes on the Borg cube. That's the episode when they killed off Hugh, which was terrible, and Romulegolas was hiding on the Borg cube, hiding in those corridors for days apparently, while Picard is having fun on the planet, and so that part of the episode kind of ruined it a little bit, and that's the reason I almost rank it second place. But still, all those parts with Riker and Troy and their daughter was so good that I still think I'm putting that as my number 1 episode of the season, and my number 2 would be the first episode of the season, which also had a lot of good stuff, but also a bunch of strange or stupid stuff, but I remember how much I was hoping for the show to be good, and the first episode didn't totally disappoint me. It had a lot of things which I liked, and now looking at the whole season, I think it was a much higher than average episode, and so I'm putting it in the second place. Also, a lot of things that they introduced in the episode I thought was a very good idea, but then later on in the series it ruined it, so kind of retrospectively it damages this episode as well, because for example they mentioned Bruce Maddox, and so I was thinking, oh, so that's interesting, that's a character from TNG, they're going to bring him back and do something with him and so on, and then they didn't do anything. It was a different actor and they killed him off immediately and he was totally pointless, and so it kind of damages this episode as well. But if I look at this episode as a standalone, it's still much better than any other episode except for 7, so that's why I'm putting this one as number 2. And I think all the other episodes of the season were much worse, but in third place I'm putting the last episode of the season, episode 10, especially because it had a few scenes which were really good, namely the Data scene, the scene in which Picard talks with Data inside that quantum simulation, and then later when he disconnected Data. All of it I thought was done almost brilliantly. It did again have a few flaws, a few lines I would have changed, a few lines I didn't like, but overall it was done really good. The dialogue, the acting, the visuals, the music, everything was great, and also there was a little bit of a space battle which was good, even though some of it was a little bit cheap, the copy-paste fleet and all of that, but we got to see Riker again. He showed up, again felt like the actual Riker from TNG, and finally things came to a head, finally a showdown, finally something was solved, something was resolved from everything they set up previously. Because one of the things which were annoying, they made it so serialized that in so many episodes nothing really happened, nothing progressed in the bigger story. A lot of it felt like filler, it was dragging, it was boring. So at least in the final episode they summarized some of it and finished it, so it felt kind of satisfying finally. So that's why I'm putting it in third place, and mostly because of that Data scene, which I do think is good. And in the fourth place I'm putting episode 6, which was the episode in which Picard arrives to the Borg cube. And I think I did kind of like how they showed him having PTSD and all of that, even though it was a little bit exaggerated. It didn't fit what we saw previously of the character of Picard, how he confronted the Borg again without all of these problems, maybe only a little bit, and here they kind of exaggerated it, but I still liked the principle of it, of seeing how he has to overcome his fear, especially in that scene when he holds that necklace and you can see that he's scared, his hand is shaking, and yet he forces himself to do it, and so that's heroic in my opinion. I always say a hero is not someone who doesn't have fear, but someone who has fear but manages to overcome it. That's a real hero. And that stuff with the PTSD, it was a little bit over the top, but I still like that idea, and him meeting Hugh was great, and finally felt like, you know, some kind of a reunion from TNG and not just random characters for no reason. And also that whole subplot with Soji and Narek being in love and all of that, it dragged on for so many episodes and didn't go anywhere, and in this episode they finally finished that little storyline, and so finally we got something from it. So that also was finally satisfying, because that whole subplot, probably one of the most terrible things in the whole season, was that whole love story between them, which took way too long and it was so badly done. But at least in this episode it finally came to a final showdown. Finally he tells her the truth, he gets the information he wanted, he tries to kill her, and then Picard helps her escape. So finally things were progressing, and also we did see some interesting shots inside the Borg cube with the Borg drones and all of that. So I would say this is above average episode, and that's why I'm putting it in fourth place. And after this point it's really hard to rank the episodes, because most of them I would put on the same level, so it's hard to pick favorites, but I think I would put episode 4 in fifth place. That was the episode in which we meet Romul Legolas and that planet with the Romulans and all of that, which had a lot of silly stuff and a lot of pointless stuff, but at least it had some interesting visuals. At least the show took us to some planet and they showed some kind of alien landscape. And I also like that flashback scene of Picard and Romul Legolas when he was a little boy. That one was actually well done. That scene of him reading books to him and fencing with him, all of that was kind of nice. And even some of the scenes in the future, like Picard almost fencing with that Romulan, that was a missed opportunity. I think he should have stood his ground a little bit more on his own. But at least we got some kind of small homage to something from TNG, because Picard actually did know how to fence, and so that Romulan was surprised that that old man Picard is actually able to stand against him for a few seconds, but then Romul Legolas appeared and cut his head off. So I wouldn't say this is a good episode by any means, but at least it had some good moments, at least it had some kind of enjoyment I got from it, and so that's why I'm putting it in fifth place. And after this, in sixth place, I would put episode 3. That's the episode when we first meet Captain Rios, and I did kind of like his first scene when they show that he's basically like Wolverine, he's injured and he doesn't care and he just smokes and drinks. I found it funny, I found it kind of corny and cheesy, stereotypical, all of that, but at least it was kind of entertaining, and Picard, the way he talked with him, tried to be kind of cool like him and stuff, that was fun, and the way he kind of looked at the chair, wanted to sit at the captain's chair but then didn't. So this episode had some moments which were well done, and even some of the scenes on Earth when he was looking at the sky, when he was in the vineyard, and so it did have some good scenes. And in the end of the episode, they finally go out into space, and so it finally felt like it's going somewhere, so that's another plus. And in number 7, I would put episode 2. That's the episode in which Picard meets that annoying potty mouth admiral who curses at him and all of that, which was terrible. But at least that episode had some scenes on Earth. At least we got to see some visuals at Starfleet Command, and we had that hologram of the Enterprise D, which was a nice touch. And so the episode did have some neat moments, and so I don't hate everything in this episode. And at number 8, I would put episode 9. That's the episode before the last one. That's the episode in which they were attacked by those giant flowers, and they were forced to land on a planet, and even the Borg cube was somehow forced to land or crash land. And then they meet the androids, and this felt really cheap, really lazy, really stupid in many ways. Brent Spiner appears as the biological son of Sung, which we never heard about, which came out of nowhere. That was annoying, and not a lot of things happened in this episode, except I guess those action scenes in the beginning. I did like when they got their seatbelts on and all of that. And Rios being a smoker was proven to be useful in this episode, because when all the lights went out, he used his lighter to make some light. And so the episode did have some good moments, but overall it was pretty bad and boring, but not the worst one. And in number 9, I'm actually putting episode 8, which was that episode in which Rio suddenly became depressed and he locked himself in a room, and then Raffi was trying to figure out what's wrong with him, and half the episode was her talking with all those holograms on the ship who all look like Captain Rios for some reason, and they said that somehow each hologram represents some aspect of his personality or something, and they never explained it properly. How are they connected with him? Did somehow copy his brain to make these holograms? Nothing was explained, it made no sense. So a lot of this episode was a whole bunch of nonsense, and I think it would have been a cool twist for the season to reveal that Captain Rios was also a hologram all along. That could have been an interesting twist, to basically reveal that the ship was automatic, only run by AI from the beginning, and that Captain Rios was just one of those many holograms. And that would also explain why he was so stereotypical, why it was so funny, the way that he was like so obviously kind of a movie character, and all of that. So if they revealed that he was programmed to be that way, that would explain it at least. But apparently no, he's a real person. Actually, we knew that from episode 5 when he went down to that planet with the casino, in which some guy smelled him to know that if he's telling the truth or not, and he was scanned, and so it wouldn't have made sense that he was a hologram. But I actually think that would have made a good twist. And also in many episodes he said how much he hates all these other holograms who look like him, and so I was always thinking that why don't you just delete them, why don't you make them look like someone else, why don't you reprogram them, like what's your problem exactly, didn't you make them? So none of that made any sense. And in this episode somehow they say that all those holograms are linked with him and they know what he knows, and it doesn't make sense. Why would it be this way, unless he's also a hologram, but he's not, and he's an alcoholist, he's sitting in his room brooding and all of that. So this episode was pretty terrible in my opinion, even though it could have been great. A lot of things in the show, if they did them better in the right way, they could have actually been good, but the way it was done, it was kind of bad and lazy and cheap and all of that. And the absolute worst episode in my opinion is episode 5, the way they totally humiliated Icheb from Voyager and killed him in a horrible way, made Seven kill him, and then Seven became kind of a vigilante murderer. I actually wouldn't mind her being a vigilante and all of that, and even if she killed that person because she did actually deserve it, and if there was no way to arrest her, then maybe it would even be legitimate to do that. But what annoyed me is how stupid Picard was. Like, Picard doesn't know anything, he's been led around by other people, and he has no brains basically, and he tells Seven, he gives her that speech that killing is wrong, you shouldn't kill people, and then she says, okay Picard, can I borrow your weapons and go back to that planet where we just left, where I wanted to kill someone, can I go back? And he said, yeah, no problem. So it's like he totally forgot what happened 5 minutes before, and he just he beams her down to that same place with the weapons that he gave her, thinking that he convinced her. And so what the hell was that? The only good moment in that episode was when they were talking about, both of them being assimilated by the Borg and not fully regaining their humanity and all of that. That was maybe the best moment between them, but the rest of the episode was so terrible. All that casino planet, that lizard guy who can smell people, he can smell what they had for breakfast. I guess it was meant to be comedic, but it wasn't funny. It was a huge fail, and especially that scene with Patrick talking like a French guy. I can understand what they were trying to do. Patrick Stewart made that same kind of joke in many interviews and stuff, and he explained why Picard never talked with a French accent, because it would sound ridiculous, and it was always funny. People laughed at that, so I guess maybe he wanted to put that joke into the show, that he will now act like a Frenchman, but it wasn't funny. It was so strange, and it was so bizarre. Maybe if the whole episode was a comedy one, maybe it would be better, but then parts of the episode is total horror, body horror, showing people's eyes being ripped out and all of that kind of stuff. Two characters that we care about from Voyager, so what the hell. So this was the absolute worst episode in my opinion. So that's my ranking for season 1 of Picard. Of course, all of this is just in my opinion, and if you disagree with me or if you want to discuss something, we can do it in the comment section below, so let me know what you think. If you enjoyed this video, please hit the like button, please like, subscribe, click the notification bell if you want to see updates of new videos. Consider supporting me on Patreon if you want to encourage me to make more videos faster. Check out all the links in the description below to see my other channels and playlists, and I will see you all next time. Bye bye.